graders, we are going to be starting our geometry unit today. We're going to start with a review of classifying some of our most basic two-dimensional figures. So we're going to start with classifying triangles. Quick review, things you already know about triangles. They have 3 sides, 3 angles, 3 vertices, which is the plural of vertex. Vertex means it's where the 2 sides create a point. They have different types that are classified by their angles and their sides. We'll talk about those different classifications in a second. And then the sum of the 3 angles of a triangle must equal 180 degrees. Okay. Now triangles have a first name and a last name. Their first name is how we classify them based on their angles. So these words will hopefully sound familiar to you. Our first one is an acute triangle. Remember, acute is like a cute little baby. So acute means small. It is when the angle is less than 90 degrees. So an acute triangle is when all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees. Our next one is a right triangle. A right triangle has exactly 1 right angle, which means that it is exactly 90 degrees. That is marked with the square in the corner to show us that it is exactly 90 degrees. And our last one is obtuse. So obtuse is big, it's greater than 90 degrees, so it would be this angle. Okay, so that is our options for a triangle's classification by angle. Again, acute is when all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees. Right is when 1 angle is exactly 90 degrees. And obtuse is when 1 angle is greater than 90 degrees. Okay, then last name is based on the sides of the triangle. Okay, quick vocab word here. The word congruent means that they're equal or equal in size. Okay, it's a word that we use a lot in geometry. So congruent means equal. And our 3 types of triangles based on their sides. Our first one is equilateral. So equilateral is when all 3 sides are congruent or equal. These are tick marks. They mark which sides are congruent. Alright, so because they're all marked with 1 tick mark, we know all 3 sides are equal. When 2 sides are equal, it is called isosceles. So again, these 2 sides are marked with a tick mark, so we know they are equal. This one is not, so it is a different length. So that's isosceles. And then when none of the sides are equal, we call that scalene. Right? So all 3 sides are different lengths. Right? So again, by side length, equilateral is all 3 sides are equal. Isosceles is 2 sides are equal. And scalene is none of the sides are equal. Okay, so if we look at this example, this one is a right triangle, and it's scalene because none of the sides are the same. This one is acute because all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees, and it's isosceles. These 2 are the same. Okay, so this would be an acute isosceles triangle. Right, this one is obtuse because of the 120 degrees, and isosceles, so obtuse isosceles. And this one is acute, all 3 angles are less than 90 degrees, and scalene, all 3 sides are different. So acute, scalene. Okay, so next we're going to look at quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals, we should already know, they have 4 sides, 4 angles, and 4 vertices. They also have different types based on their sides and their angles, and the sum of the angles must be 360 degrees. Okay, now I want to make a real quick connection here. Okay, we said a triangle is 180 degrees, and a quadrilateral is 360 degrees, and that is because we can take, imagine that line is straight, any quadrilateral and split it up into 2 triangles. So if this triangle is 180 degrees and this triangle is 180 degrees, then 180 plus 180 is 360. Okay, so that is why triangles are 180 degrees. They're half of a quadrilateral. Or you can think of it as a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. It's double a triangle. Okay. Also pay attention to those prefixes. Triangle means 3, so 3 sides, angles, and vertices. Quadrilateral, quad means 4, so 4 sides, 4 angles, 4 vertices. All right, then for quadrilaterals, they have a family tree. Okay, so not as simple as just picking which name as a triangle. So we have a family tree that we're going to look at. So the top of our family tree is a quadrilateral. A quadrilateral just means it looks like anything. It has 4 sides and 4 angles. And that's all that we need to call it a quadrilateral. right? Then it branches off into two branches of the family tree. The shorter branch is the trapezoid branch. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. These pink kind of triangles, they're arrows. They are marking that it is parallel. Remember, parallel means that they are two lines that extend and they never touch, they never cross. It's like the sides of a railroad track, they never intersect. Okay, so if a quadrilateral has two pairs or has a pair of parallel sides, so two of its sides are parallel, then we call that a trapezoid. Okay, and that's as far as that one goes. We don't have different types of a trapezoid that we need to know. There are different types, but we won't cover them. So this is just a trapezoid. Now the other side of the family tree is much bigger. Right? It is the parallelogram side. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides are parallel and congruent. That's why we have lots of markings here. So these opposite sides, they are parallel. That's why they're marked with the one arrow. And they are congruent, meaning they're the same length. That's why they're also marked with this tick mark. And then the other pair of opposite sides, in this case the top and the bottom, they are also parallel. They each have two arrows to mark that they are parallel and two tick marks to mark that they are also congruent. Okay, so if it has one pair of parallel sides, it's a trapezoid. If it has two pairs of parallel and congruent sides, it's a parallelogram. Okay, and then we can break a parallelogram down to more specific names. So our first one is the rectangle. A rectangle is a parallelogram, meaning it has its opposite sides are both parallel and congruent. So these sides are both parallel and congruent. These sides are both parallel and congruent. But what makes it a rectangle is its four right angles. Right? Then a parallelogram also can become a rhombus. So a rhombus is a parallelogram, meaning that again, it has its opposite sides are both parallel and congruent. But what makes it specifically a rhombus is that all four sides are congruent. Okay, so all four sides are equal in length. Okay, and then our last one is a square. So a square is a parallelogram, that's why it has this line, because the opposite sides are parallel and congruent. Okay, but a square also has the characteristics of a rectangle because it has four right angles. And it has the characteristics of a rhombus because it has all four sides equal. Okay, so this is where you've probably heard in the past that all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. That's where this idea comes from. Okay, so the family tree, it follows back up the line. So a square has the characteristics of a rectangle, a rhombus, a parallelogram, a quadrilateral. Okay, a rectangle has the characteristics of a parallelogram and a quadrilateral, and etc. Okay, so that's the quadrilateral family tree. So we classify quadrilaterals just by giving it its most specific name. So these pictures are kind of blurry, sorry about that. Okay, but this one we can see that the opposite sides are congruent and it has four right angles, so this would best be called a rectangle. This one, we have two right angles, but that doesn't really help us with anything. We have this pair of parallel sides. So when it has one parallel side, or one pair of parallel sides, it is called a trapezoid. All right, this one is a square because it has all four sides congruent and it has four right angles. This one, we have some congruent sides, but they're not opposite one another. So the best name that we can give this one is a quadrilateral. Now, if you were thinking kite, yes, this is a kite. That was not on our family tree. So the best name of our family tree that we can give this one is a quadrilateral. Okay, this shape, we have opposite sides are parallel and congruent, but not all of the sides are congruent. So this one is a parallelogram. And for our last one, we have all four sides are congruent, okay, but it does not have right angles, so this is a rhombus. All right, so that is classifying triangles and quadrilaterals. If you have any questions, ask your teacher. Otherwise, go ahead and go on to your next task.